Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Sparkle English, where I help you improve your English level. My name is Jennifer, and this is the second video in my new series on English punctuation basics. So in our last lesson, we talked about how to use periods or full stops in sentences. So now we're going to talk about how to use question marks, and this is a question mark. We use question marks at the end of direct questions, or we can call them interrogative sentences. For example, how are you? What's your name? Are you going to the cinema tonight? These are all direct questions, and they all end with a question mark. So a question mark helps readers know that someone is asking something. And in English, we only use one question mark at the end of the sentence. In some countries, they have a question mark in the beginning and at the end. But in English, we only use one directly after the sentence. So you have the last word and then a question mark, and then a space before you continue with your next sentence. When someone asks a direct question, they are expecting an answer. For example, are you hungry? When I ask that question, I'm expecting an answer. I'm expecting you to say, yes, I am, or no, I'm not. Many questions are answered with a simple yes or no, but some questions begin with a question word, such as who, what, when, where, why, or how. And when we ask questions with question words, we are expecting longer answers or answers with more information. For example, where is mom? Mom is at the supermarket. Why are you late? Well, I was busy getting ready and I lost track of time. Many questions are formed with auxiliary verbs and require yes or no answers. For example, do you like pizza? Yes, I do. No, I don't. Have you been to Italy before? Yes, I have. No, I haven't. We also can add question marks at the end of tag questions. Now, what is a tag question? A tag question is when we make a statement and add a little question at the end. This is good pizza, isn't it? So when I add that little tag question, I'm asking for confirmation. I'm expecting you to say, oh, yes, it is. Another example might be, it's not going to rain tomorrow, is it? In this example, I don't think it's going to rain, and I want you to confirm that it's not going to rain. So in these examples, we would add question marks at the end because it's a tag question that's added after a statement. Now, it's also important to note that we use question marks at the end of direct questions. However, we do not use question marks at the end of indirect questions. So let's look at an example of a direct question. Where is Todd? I'm asking where he is. I want an answer. He's at work. He's at school. But if I say, I wonder where Todd is, that's an indirect question. So that does not end with a question mark. It ends with a period. And you can learn a little more about indirect questions and how they end with periods in the first lesson of this series. You can also use questions at the end of rhetorical or humorous questions. For example, why do I even try? You might end that with a question mark, even though you're not really expecting an answer. So some common mistakes when using question marks are to add a space before the question mark. This is incorrect. In English, we do not add a space before a question mark. However, we add one space after a question mark before continuing your next sentence. Now, a lot of people have problems with that rule. I will link you to a video explaining why we only use one space after a period or a question mark or an exclamation mark or any punctuation mark nowadays. It has something to do with the formatting of text now that we use computers instead of typewriters. So watch that video before you complain. Also, you should only use one question mark in formal writing. If you're texting a friend or something like that, you might use multiple question marks in a row. And when you do that, it's to create some dramatic effect. For example, imagine I was in town and I saw Jason Momoa, and I told my friend, Jason Momoa is here. My friend might respond, Jason Momoa is there? with like 5 question marks at the end. It's like they can't believe it and they want confirmation. However, that should be avoided in formal writing. Also, sometimes people will send a single question mark in a text to a friend or something, and that can come across as quite rude if you just send a single question mark. It's like, what? It's your way of asking what? I don't understand. So don't do that in formal writing. And you probably shouldn't even do it when you're texting friends because it's kind of rude. What do you mean? Question mark. That would be better than a single question mark. You should also not put a question mark at the end of a statement. For example, Serena is in France. That's a statement, and it should end with a period. But let's say I'm surprised that Serena is in France, or someone just told me she's in France and I don't really understand. I might respond with Serena's in France with a question mark at the end. Now that is not written correctly. I should be saying, is she really in France? Is Serena in France? I didn't know. But if you're just texting friends or something like that and it's informal, that's very common to add a question mark after a statement if you're surprised by the statement and you want the person to confirm that that is in fact true. But again, just be careful with formal writing. You should never add a question mark at the end of a statement if it's formal writing or an essay or something like that. However, if you are texting a friend or if it's something, creative writing, you're writing a book or a novel, then that's okay. So now we're going to do a quick quiz to test your knowledge on what we just learned with question marks. There are 6 exercises in total, and you must choose whether we end the sentence with a question mark or a period. Number 1, what did you want to be when you were younger? Number 2, I asked Ben where Terry went. Number 3, did you see the new Batman movie? Number 4, Mom wants to know if you're okay. Number 5, when does the train arrive? And finally, number 6, it's a beautiful day, isn't it? So number 1 is a direct question, so it must end with a question mark. Now number 2 is an indirect question, so it ends with a period. A direct question would be, where is Ben? But this is more of a statement. I asked Ben where Terry went. Number 3 is also a direct question, so we end this with a question mark. Number 4 is an indirect question, so we end this with a period. Number 5 is a direct question, so we end this with a question mark. And finally, number 6, this is a tag question. It's a beautiful day is a statement, but then we have this little tag question at the end. So this ends with a question mark. It's a beautiful day, isn't it? I'm asking for confirmation that you agree it's a beautiful day. So let me know in the comment section how many you got correct out of 6. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and make sure to subscribe for more English lessons like this one. See you next time.